When Amara Reeves walked into the crowded courtroom, everyone turned to stare. But it wasn't her confident stride or determined expression that caught their attention. It was the small golden locket dangling from her hand, swinging gently as she moved toward her seat. On the other side of the room, her ex-husband Elon Musk froze. His face turned white as paper. His phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the table in front of him. What was inside that mysterious locket that could make the world's richest man look so terrified? And why had he kept its secrets hidden for so long? The truth would shock everyone. The heavy wooden doors of Courtroom 7 swung open. Everyone turned to look. Amara Reeves stood in the doorway, her chin held high. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore a simple navy blue dress that made her look both professional and determined. Camera flashes lit up her face as reporters strained to get the perfect shot of Elon Musk's ex-wife. But it wasn't Amara that caught everyone's attention. It was what dangled from her right hand, a small golden locket on a delicate chain, swinging gently as she walked. The old metal gleamed under the harsh courtroom lights. Whispers spread through the packed room like wildfire. What's that she's carrying? Is that evidence? Look at Musk's face. On the other side of the room, Elon Musk sat beside his three expensive lawyers. The billionaire had been checking something on his phone, looking bored and slightly annoyed about being in court at all. But when he glanced up and saw Amara with the locket, everything changed. His face turned white. His eyes widened. The phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the table. "Mr. Musk?" his lead attorney whispered, concerned. "Are you okay?" Elon couldn't answer. He couldn't take his eyes off the locket. His mouth opened slightly, and for perhaps the first time in his life, the man known for his bold statements and quick comebacks had absolutely nothing to say. Amara noticed his reaction. A small, satisfied smile touched her lips as she walked confidently down the center aisle. 3 years had passed since their divorce. 3 years since their bitter arguments and final goodbyes. Now she was back in his life. And she had brought something he clearly never expected to see again. "All rise," the bailiff called out as Judge Marion Powell entered the courtroom. Everyone stood except Elon, who seemed frozen in place until one of his lawyers tugged at his sleeve. He rose shakily, still staring at the golden object in Amara's hand. "Be seated," Judge Powell said, adjusting her glasses as she settled into her chair. "We're here today for case number 24 CV 7865, Reeves versus Musk." She looked over the courtroom. "I understand there's significant media interest in this case, but I remind everyone that this is a court of law, not a circus. Any disruptions will result in immediate removal." The reporters in the back rows nodded, though their cameras remained ready. This was the lawsuit everyone had been talking about for weeks. Elon Musk's ex-wife had filed a bombshell case against him, but the exact details had been sealed until today. Amara's lawyer, Teresa Chen, stood up. "Your Honor, my client is prepared to present evidence today that Mr. Musk has deliberately hidden technology that could benefit humanity, all to protect his business interests." "That's absurd," snapped Thomas Bennett, Elon's lead attorney, finally drawing his client's attention away from the locket. "These claims are nothing but the bitter accusations of an ex-wife seeking revenge and attention. We'll let the evidence speak for itself," Teresa replied calmly. Judge Powell nodded. "We'll hear opening statements, beginning with the plaintiff." As Teresa stood to begin, Amara carefully placed the golden locket on the table in front of her. She positioned it deliberately, making sure it caught the light, and making sure Elon could see it clearly from across the room. Elon's right leg bounced nervously under the table. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the courtroom's air conditioning. His lawyers exchanged concerned glances, confused by their normally confident client's obvious distress. "Mr. Musk," Bennett whispered, leaning close. "What is that locket? Why does it matter?" Elon shook his head slightly, unwilling or unable to explain. Amara watched this exchange with interest. She remembered the night 3 years ago when she'd first discovered the locket hidden in his office safe. She remembered his anger, his strange defensiveness. At the time, she hadn't understood what it meant or why it was so important. But now, she knew the truth. Or at least, she believed she did. As Teresa delivered her opening statement, outlining the case against one of the world's richest men, Amara let her mind drift back to how different things had been when she and Elon first met. Before the arguments, before the secrets, before the locket changed everything. The golden object sat between them now like a ticking bomb. To most people in the courtroom, it looked like nothing special, just an old-fashioned piece of jewelry, the kind that might hold family photos or a lock of hair. But Amara knew better, and judging by the look of fear on Elon's face, so did he, "Ms. Reeves," Judge Powell said, bringing Amara's attention back to the present. "Your attorney mentions evidence. Is this related to the item you brought with you today?" All eyes turned to Amara. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. "Yes, Your Honor," Amara said, her voice clear and steady. "This locket contains the truth Mr. Musk has been hiding for years." Elon's lawyer stood quickly. "Objection. This is theatrical nonsense designed to create media attention." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Judge Powell said firmly. "We'll follow proper procedure for examining evidence." She turned to Elon. "Mr. Musk, you'll have your chance to respond after the plaintiff presents her case." Elon nodded stiffly, his eyes never leaving the golden locket. As the judge continued speaking, Amara reached out and touched the locket gently with her fingertips. She knew the journey that had brought her to this moment. The pain, the research, the shocking discoveries. Today, after years of searching for answers, she would finally reveal what was inside the locket, and Elon Musk's world would never be the same. As the court took a 15-minute recess, reporters rushed outside to file their initial stories. The headline was already writing itself. "Musk shocked as ex-wife reveals mysterious locket in court." Inside the nearly empty courtroom, Elon huddled with his legal team. His normal confidence had returned somewhat, but his eyes kept darting to where Amara sat with her lawyer. The golden locket now hung around her neck, catching the light when she moved. "You need to tell us what that thing is," Thomas Bennett insisted, tapping his expensive pen against his legal pad. "We can't defend you properly if you keep us in the dark." Elon ran a hand through his hair. "It's complicated," he said finally. "That locket is tied to decisions I made years ago. Business decisions. Business decisions." The phrase seemed so simple, yet it had defined Elon Musk's entire life. From his first software company to his current empire spanning electric cars, space travel, social media, and more, his choices had changed the world and made him one of the richest men alive. But those same decisions had cost him dearly in other ways. 10 years earlier, before he met Amara, Elon had been focused on building his electric car company. His days were endless, rushing from factory floors to design meetings, making emergency calls to suppliers at 3 a.m., sleeping on office couches rather than wasting time going home. "Sir, there's someone here you should meet," his assistant, Vince, had told him one afternoon. "Dr. Amara Reeves. She's developed a battery technology that could be exactly what we need." Elon remembered that first meeting clearly. Amara had been passionate, brilliant, and completely unimpressed by his fame or wealth. She had challenged his ideas directly and won his respect immediately. "Your current batteries are too heavy and too expensive," she had told him bluntly, pushing her prototype across the conference table. "Mine are half the weight, last twice as long, and can be produced using more sustainable materials." She was right. Her innovation had been exactly what his company needed, and 6 months later, her technology was being incorporated into his newest vehicles. But by then, their relationship had become more than professional. Their romance had been intense and swift. Two brilliant minds, both dedicated to changing the world through technology. They worked together during the day and fell in love during their rare moments of free time. 8 months after they met, they were married in a private ceremony. For a while, it seemed perfect. Amara brought balance to Elon's chaotic life. She understood his drive and ambition because she shared it. When his space company launched its first successful mission, she had been by his side, squeezing his hand as the rocket pierced the clouds. But the golden years didn't last. As Judge Powell returned to the courtroom and everyone filed back in, Elon found himself staring at Amara's profile. She had changed since their divorce. Harder, more determined. The softness in her eyes when she used to look at him was long gone. "Mr. Bennett, you may present your opening statement for the defense," the judge announced. As his lawyer stood to speak, Elon's mind drifted back to how things had fallen apart. It had started with small arguments, Elon missing dinner plans because of last-minute meetings, Amara feeling sidelined in the company she had helped transform. Then came bigger conflicts about the direction of their research, about promises Elon made but couldn't keep. "My client is one of the most innovative entrepreneurs of our time," Bennett was saying. "His companies have revolutionized transportation, space exploration, and communication. Ms. Reeves's claims that he would suppress beneficial technology for profit go against everything he stands for." Amara made a soft noise. Not quite a laugh, not quite a scoff. Elon glanced at her, their eyes meeting briefly across the room. There had been a time when he could read her thoughts just by looking at her. Now she was a mystery to him. The real problems in their marriage had started 3 years ago when Amara found the locket. He should have been more careful. He should have kept it in a safer place. But he had been careless, and she had been curious. A dangerous combination. "Mr. Musk has dedicated his life to advancing humanity's future," Bennett continued. "From electric vehicles that reduce our dependence on fossil fuels to spacecraft designed to make us an interplanetary species, his vision has always been about progress, not profit." This time Amara did laugh out loud, earning a stern look from Judge Powell. "Sorry, Your Honor," she said, not sounding sorry at all. Elon shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He knew what Amara thought, that somewhere along the way, he had changed, that the idealistic innovator had become just another businessman protecting his interests. Was she right? Had the pressures of running multiple companies, of answering to shareholders and board members, of fighting constant battles with regulators and competitors? So Furu, had it all changed him? Maybe. But the truth about the locket was more complicated than Amara knew. The plaintiff's claims are based on speculation and misunderstanding, Bennett was saying. "We will demonstrate that Mr. Musk has always acted ethically and in accordance with his public commitment to improving life on Earth." As the lawyer spoke, Elon couldn't help but wonder what exactly Amara thought she knew about the locket. How much had she discovered? Who had she talked to? The possibilities made his stomach tight with worry. Their divorce had been ugly and public. His PR team had worked overtime to control the damage as tabloids printed story after story. Tech, billionaire's marriage crashes and burns. Musk's ex refuses million-dollar settlement. What is Musk hiding? That last headline had been too close to the truth for comfort. When Bennett finished his opening statement, Judge Powell turned to Amara's attorney. "Ms. Chen, you may call your first witness." Teresa Chen stood. "The plaintiff calls Amara Reeves to the stand." As Amara rose from her seat, the locket gleamed against her dark dress. She walked to the witness stand, took the oath, and sat down, her eyes briefly meeting Elon's. In that moment, he realized he had never stopped caring for her, despite everything. And now she was about to tell the world about the golden locket, or at least what she thought she knew about it. The truth, as always, was far more complicated. "Ms. Reeves, please tell the court how you first discovered the locket," Teresa Chen began. Amara leaned toward the microphone. "It was 3 years ago, on July 18th. I remember the date because it was our second wedding anniversary. The memory of that day washed over her like a cold wave. She had been planning a surprise dinner for Elon, who had forgotten their first anniversary the year before. She wanted to make reservations at their favorite restaurant, but needed to check his schedule first. Elon was at a meeting with investors," Amara continued. "I went into his home office to look at his calendar, which he kept in a file in his safe. Elon tensed visibly across the courtroom. He knew what was coming. We shared the safe combination. It wasn't a secret between us," Amara explained. "When I opened it to find the calendar, I saw something unusual tucked in the back corner, a small golden locket." She touched the locket, now hanging around her neck. "This locket. And what did you do when you found it?" Teresa asked. "I was curious, of course. It looked old and valuable. I'd never seen it before, and Elon had never mentioned it." Amara's voice grew softer. "When I picked it up, I noticed how heavy it felt for its size. I tried to open it, but it was stuck." The courtroom was silent as everyone listened intently. Even the reporters had stopped typing, captivated by her story. Later that evening, when Elon came home, I showed him the locket and asked about it. "And how did Mr. Musk react?" Teresa prompted. Amara looked directly at Elon. "He was angry, angrier than I'd ever seen him. He grabbed it from my hands and demanded to know why I was going through his things." "Objection," Bennett interrupted. "Ms. Reeves is characterizing my client's emotional state." "I'll rephrase," Teresa said smoothly. "Ms. Reeves, what specifically did Mr. Musk say or do when you showed him the locket?" Amara took a deep breath. His face turned red. He raised his voice and said, "That's private. You had no right to touch it." When I explained I was just looking for his calendar, he said the locket was a family heirloom and very personal to him. He put it back in the safe, locked it, and walked out of the room. Elon stared at the table in front of him, jaw clenched. His lawyers whispered urgently to each other. "Did you believe his explanation that it was a family heirloom?" Teresa asked. "No," Amara said firmly. In the 2 years we'd been married, Elon had never mentioned any family heirlooms. He rarely talked about family treasures or sentimental objects. His focus was always on the future, not the past. What happened next? That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and noticed Elon wasn't in bed. I heard his voice coming from his office. He was on the phone, speaking quietly. Amara closed her eyes briefly, remembering how she had stood in the dark hallway, listening to her husband's hushed voice through the partially open office door. I heard him say, "The contents are secure," and Nobody knows the truth, he said. I'll handle it, don't worry. When I asked him about it the next morning, he claimed it was just a business call about a new project. Teresa nodded. Did you believe him? No. Elon always talked openly about his business projects with me. We were partners. This was different. Secretive, almost afraid. Amara looked at the jury as she spoke. It was the first time I felt like he was hiding something important from me. What did you do then? I started paying attention. I noticed Elon checking the safe more often. Sometimes he would take out the locket when he thought I wasn't home. Once, I saw him trying to open it with a small tool. Objection, Bennett called out. Speculation, unless Ms. Reeves can prove what my client was doing. Sustained, Judge Powell ruled. The jury will disregard that last statement. Teresa continued. After discovering the locket, did your relationship with Mr. Musk change? Amara nodded. Everything changed. I started questioning things he told me. He became more distant, working later, taking mysterious calls. The locket sat between us like a wall. Did you ever ask about the locket again? Yes, about a month later. I asked directly why it was so important to him. Amara's voice grew quiet. He said, "Some secrets are better left alone, Amara. Trust me on this." In the gallery, a few reporters exchanged glances. Elon Musk's words had just become tomorrow's headline. Did you try to learn more about the locket? I did, Amara admitted. I took a photo of it one day when Elon left the safe open. I searched online for similar lockets, but found nothing like it. It seemed unique, handcrafted, possibly very old. And did you discover anything else unusual during this time? Amara's expression hardened. Yes. About 3 weeks after finding the locket, I was organizing some papers in our home when I found a receipt. It showed that Elon had purchased the locket just 6 months earlier from a private collector for a large sum of money. Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Elon whispered something urgently to his lawyer. So it wasn't a family heirloom after all, Teresa stated. No, it was something he had bought recently and deliberately hid from me. Judge Powell tapped her gavel as the whispers grew louder. Order, please. Ms. Reeves, did you confront Mr. Musk about the receipt? I did. That night, I asked him why he lied about the locket. He became defensive, said I was obsessing over nothing. Then he said something I'll never forget. Amara looked directly at Elon. He said, "Sometimes protecting something valuable means keeping secrets, even from the people you love." The courtroom was completely silent now. Even Judge Powell leaned forward slightly. After that, Amara continued, I knew our marriage was in trouble. The trust was broken. Within 2 months, we were sleeping in separate bedrooms. And 3 months after I found the locket, I filed for divorce. Teresa nodded sympathetically. Thank you, Ms. Reeves. No further questions at this time. Judge Powell turned to the defense table. Mr. Bennett, your cross-examination? As Elon's lawyer stood up, Amara touched the locket at her throat. The truth about what was inside this small golden object had changed her life once. Now it was about to change Elon's too, and perhaps the world along with it. Ms. Reeves, Thomas Bennett began his cross-examination, pacing slowly in front of the witness stand. You've painted quite a dramatic picture about a piece of jewelry. Isn't it possible that you've attached far too much importance to this locket? Amara sat straighter. I didn't assign the importance, Mr. Bennett. Your client did that when he lied about it, and became angry when I found it. Bennett smiled thinly. Let's talk about that period in your marriage. Wasn't Mr. Musk under extreme pressure at that time? His space company was preparing for a critical launch. His car company was struggling with production delays. Isn't it possible his reaction was simply stress? No, Amara replied firmly. I knew when Elon was stressed about work. This was different. As Bennett continued questioning her, Amara's mind drifted back to those painful months after she discovered the locket. The growing distance between her and Elon had felt like a physical thing, expanding day by day. Their home, a modern mansion with sweeping views of the city, had begun to feel like a beautiful prison. Elon spent more time at his various company offices than at home. When he did return, late at night, he would often go straight to his private office and lock the door. You mentioned that your husband would check the safe frequently, Bennett was saying. Isn't it common for someone to check on valuable items? Not the way Elon did, Amara replied. He seemed worried, not protective. One particular evening stood out in her memory. She had suggested they try marriage counseling, and to her surprise, Elon had agreed. They had even made it through 3 sessions when, after their argument about the locket, he suddenly canceled all future appointments. We don't need someone listening to our private business, he had told her sharply. That same week, Amara had tried one last attempt to understand what was happening. She had approached Vince Dawson, Elon's personal assistant who had been with him for years. Vince knew everything about Elon's schedule, his habits, his secrets. Ms. Reeves, Bennett's voice pulled her back to the present. You claim my client became secretive, but weren't you the one investigating him behind his back? Taking photos of his possessions? Questioning his staff? I was trying to understand why my husband had suddenly changed, Amara answered. And, yes, I did speak with Vince Dawson about the locket. In the gallery, reporters typed frantically. This was the first mention of Vince, who had mysteriously left Elon's employment shortly after the Musk-Reeves divorce. And what did Mr. Dawson tell you? Bennett asked. Objection, hearsay, Teresa Chen called out. I'll rephrase, Bennett said smoothly. After speaking with Mr. Dawson, what actions did you take? Amara glanced at Elon, who was watching her intently. Now. Vince didn't tell me anything useful. He seemed nervous when I mentioned the locket. He changed the subject immediately and walked away. But his reaction just confirmed that something wasn't right. Bennett nodded. So you had a husband under tremendous work pressure, and a harmless family heirloom? It wasn't a family heirloom, Amara interrupted. He lied about that. As you claim, Bennett countered. Yet, rather than supporting your husband during an obviously stressful time, you chose to fixate on this locket, creating tension in your marriage. Isn't that accurate? Amara felt her cheeks grow warm. No, the locket didn't create the tension. The secrets did. The isolation of those final months in their marriage had been the worst part. Elon had retreated completely into his work. Their conversations had become short and functional. Even in their huge house, they had barely seen each other. One night, she had woken at 3 a.m. to find Elon's side of the bed empty again. Walking quietly toward his office, she had heard him on the phone once more. No one can know what's in it, he had said. Too much is at stake. The next morning, Amara had scheduled an appointment with a divorce attorney. No further questions at this time, Your Honor, Bennett said, returning to his seat. Judge Powell checked her watch. We'll take a lunch recess and resume at 1:30. As everyone rose, Amara stepped down from the witness stand. Her testimony had lasted longer than expected, and she felt drained. Across the courtroom, Elon was surrounded by his legal team, all of them speaking in hushed, urgent tones. For a brief moment, their eyes met once more. In that instant, Amara saw something unexpected in Elon's expression. Not anger or resentment, but something that looked almost like sadness or regret. As she gathered her things, Teresa leaned close. "You did great," her lawyer whispered. "This afternoon, we'll call Vince Dawson to the stand." Amara nodded, her hand automatically reaching for the locket around her neck. It felt warm to the touch, as if the metal itself contained the energy of all the secrets inside. The courtroom was emptying now. Reporters rushed out to file their midday stories. Lawyers packed up documents. But Amara remained seated for a moment, remembering how quickly love had turned to suspicion and trust to betrayal. All because of this small golden object that had torn their world apart. When court resumed after lunch, the tension in the room had only increased. News of the morning testimony had spread online, and the gallery was now packed to capacity. Instead of calling Vince Dawson as planned, Teresa Chen approached the bench. After a brief, whispered conversation with the judge and Elon's lawyer, she returned to her table. "Your Honor," she announced, "we'd like to present evidence regarding the divorce proceedings between Ms. Reeves and Mr. Musk." Judge Powell nodded. "Proceed." Teresa displayed several documents on the courtroom screens. "These are the initial divorce papers filed by Ms. Reeves 3 years ago, citing irreconcilable differences." Amara stared at the familiar documents, remembering the day she had signed them. It had been raining, a rare downpour that matched her mood perfectly. She had sat in her lawyer's office, pen hovering over the signature line, wondering how things had gone so wrong so quickly. Ms. Reeves filed for divorce after 8 months of growing distance in the marriage, Teresa explained to the jury. What began as a loving partnership between two brilliant innovators had become a relationship filled with secrets and suspicion. Thomas Bennett stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is editorializing." "Sustained," Judge Powell agreed. "Please stick to the facts, Ms. Chen." Teresa nodded and displayed a new document. 2 weeks after the divorce filing, Mr. Musk's legal team presented this settlement offer. The document showed a staggering figure, $175 million plus properties in 3 countries. It would have made Amara incredibly wealthy overnight. "As you can see," Teresa continued, "this generous offer came with specific conditions." She highlighted a section of text, enlarging it for the jury to read clearly. The non-disclosure agreement included standard language about company secrets and personal matters, Teresa explained. But it also contained this unusual paragraph. The highlighted text read, "Second party, Amara Reeves, agrees to never disclose or claim ownership of any personal items or jewelry belonging to first party, Elon Musk, including but not limited to family heirlooms, collectibles, or decorative items of any material including gold, silver, platinum, or other precious metals." Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Elon shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Why would Mr. Musk's lawyers include such specific language about jewelry? Teresa asked rhetorically. And why offer such an enormous settlement? "Objection," Bennett called out. "The settlement offered was standard for people of Mr. Musk's wealth." "Overruled," Judge Powell said. "Continue, Ms. Chen." Teresa displayed another document. Ms. Reeves rejected this settlement offer. In response, Mr. Musk's team came back with an even larger figure, $225 million, with the same unusual conditions about jewelry. Amara remembered her surprise at the increased offer. Her divorce lawyer had been stunned, urging her to accept it. "This is life-changing money," he had told her. "Why fight over some old jewelry?" But it wasn't about money. It never had been. "Ms. Reeves, can you explain why you rejected these settlement offers?" Teresa asked. Amara leaned toward the microphone. "The money wasn't important to me. I had my own successful career and patents. What bothered me was the specific mention of jewelry when we had never discussed it during negotiations. It confirmed my suspicions that the locket was significant. What happened next in the divorce proceedings? Things got messy, Amara said simply. The tabloids ran wild with stories. Elon's PR team tried to paint me as gold digger despite my rejecting the settlements. My lawyer kept receiving increasingly urgent calls from Elon's team. The divorce had played out in public, with paparazzi camping outside her home and rumors spreading online. Through it all, Amara had maintained her silence about the locket, waiting and watching. Finally, Teresa continued. After 3 months of negotiations, this final settlement was reached. The new document showed a much smaller figure, $25 million, with no mention of jewelry or personal items. Ms. Reeves, why did you accept this significantly smaller settlement? Because by then it wasn't about money, Amara explained. Something happened that changed everything. She took a deep breath, preparing to reveal what she had kept private. For 3 years. The day I moved out of our home, I went to say goodbye to Elon. He wasn't there, but his office door was open. I noticed immediately that his safe was also open and empty. The golden locket was gone. Elon's face remained impassive, but Amara noticed his hands tightening into fists under the table. I confronted him by phone about the missing locket. He claimed he knew nothing about it, said maybe one of the moving staff had taken it. Amara's voice hardened, but I knew better. He had hidden it because he was afraid I knew something about it, or would discover something. And did that affect your decision to settle the divorce? Yes. I realized I needed time to figure out what was so important about that locket. Fighting a prolonged legal battle against someone with Elon's resources would make that impossible. So I accepted the smaller settlement and walked away. Teresa nodded. And what did you do after the divorce was finalized? I rebuilt my life, Amara said. I started my own clean energy company. I bought a small house in Colorado. I tried to move on. She paused, but I couldn't stop thinking about the locket and what Elon might be hiding. Teresa turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce our next witness who can shed light on what happened with the locket after Ms. Reeves and Mr. Musk divorced. Proceed, Judge Powell said. The plaintiff calls Vincent Dawson to the stand. A ripple of surprise went through the courtroom. Vince Dawson had disappeared from public view after leaving Elon's employment 3 years ago. No interviews, no social media presence. Just gone. The courtroom doors opened, and a thin, nervous-looking man with glasses walked in. Elon's entire body tensed as his former assistant approached the witness stand. As Vince was sworn in, Amara noticed how different he looked. Thinner, paler, with darting eyes that refused to meet Elon's fierce gaze. Whatever Vince knew about the golden locket, it had clearly cost him dearly to keep that secret for 3 long years. And now he was about to tell the world. Mr. Dawson, Teresa Chen began, please tell the court about your employment with Mr. Musk. Vince adjusted his glasses nervously. I worked as Mr. Musk's personal assistant for 7 years, from 2015 until 2022. I handled his schedule, communications, travel arrangements, everything, including access to his personal safe. Yes, Vince admitted. I knew the combination. Sometimes I needed to retrieve documents for him. And were you familiar with the golden locket that's been discussed in this courtroom? Vince glanced briefly at Elon before answering. Yes, I saw Mr. Musk with it several times. Can you tell us when you first became aware of this locket? It was about 4 years ago. Mr. Musk received a package and became very excited when he opened it. Inside was the locket. He immediately locked it in his safe. Did Mr. Musk tell you what it was, or why it was important? Vince hesitated. Not exactly. He just said it was incredibly valuable, and that I shouldn't mention it to anyone, including Ms. Reeves. A murmur went through the courtroom. Elon's lawyers whispered urgently to each other. And did you follow that instruction? Teresa asked. Yes, Vince replied. Until Ms. Reeves approached me directly about it. She asked if I knew anything about a golden locket she had found in the safe. I pretended I didn't know what she was talking about. Why did you lie to her? I was loyal to Mr. Musk. He paid my salary. I followed his instructions. Vince looked down. I regret that now. What happened after Ms. Reeves filed for divorce? Mr. Musk became extremely concerned about the locket. He removed it from the safe at their home and kept it with him constantly. He was paranoid that Ms. Reeves might try to take it. Did there come a time when you left Mr. Musk's employment? Vince nodded. Yes. About a month after the divorce was finalized, I was fired. Why were you fired, Mr. Dawson? Mr. Musk claimed I had breached confidentiality, but the truth is, he found out I had been looking into the locket myself. I had become curious. Teresa approached the witness stand. And what did you discover? About the locket that got you fired? Bennett stood quickly. Objection, Your Honor. This is pure speculation. No, it's direct knowledge based on Mr. Dawson's investigation, Teresa countered. Judge Powell considered for a moment. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Ms. Chen. Teresa nodded and turned back to Vince. Please answer the question, Mr. Dawson. Vince took a deep breath. I traced the locket's history. Mr. Musk had purchased it from a private collector who acquired it from the estate of a deceased scientist named Dr. Petra Novak. The name meant nothing to most people in the courtroom, but Amara straightened in her chair. Dr. Novak had been a brilliant physicist whose promising career had ended abruptly. When she mysteriously disappeared 10 years ago, after I was fired, Vince continued, I was followed for months. My apartment was broken into twice. Someone hacked my email and phone. I eventually moved to a small town in Idaho and changed my name. I've been living off the grid until Ms. Reeves contacted me recently. And how exactly did Ms. Reeves find you? Teresa asked. She didn't, Vince replied. I found her. 2 years after her divorce, Amara had settled into a new routine. Her clean energy startup, Novus Power, had secured its first major contracts. She had a small team of brilliant engineers working on next-generation solar technology. For the first time since the divorce, she felt like she was moving forward. Then the package arrived. It was a plain brown envelope with no return address, delivered to her office. Inside was a collection of newspaper clippings about Dr. Petra Novak's disappearance 10 years earlier. The accompanying note read simply, "The locket connects to this. Be careful who you trust." A friend. Amara spread the clippings across her desk that evening. Most were from scientific journals reporting on Dr. Novak's pioneering work in energy storage systems. Several mentioned the revolutionary breakthrough she had been about to announce before she vanished. One photo in particular caught Amara's attention. It showed Dr. Novak at a conference, wearing a small golden locket around her neck. Unmistakably, the same locket Amara had found in Elon's safe. Her heart raced as the pieces began to connect. This wasn't about jewelry or sentimentality. The locket had belonged to Dr. Novak before her disappearance, and somehow ended up in Elon's possession. Amara immediately began researching everything she could find about Dr. Novak. She learned that the brilliant scientist had been working on an energy storage solution that promised to be orders of magnitude more efficient than current battery technology. Her last public statement mentioned a miniaturized prototype that would change the world. Then she vanished without a trace. For the next 6 months, Amara built a detailed timeline connecting Dr. Novak's disappearance to Elon's acquisition of the locket. She tracked down former colleagues of the missing scientist, most of whom refused to talk. Those who did speak shared only vague memories, as if afraid to say too much. Just as the trail seemed to grow cold, Amara received another, anonymous message. "Meet me at Riverside Park, Thursday, 3 p.m. Come alone." She debated whether to go. It could be a trap, but her need for answers outweighed her caution. The man who approached her park bench wore a baseball cap pulled low and sunglasses despite the cloudy day. It took her a moment to recognize Vince Dawson beneath the disguise. "I've been watching you," he said without greeting, "making sure you weren't being followed." "Why are you helping me, Vince?" Amara asked. "You were always loyal to Elon." "I was," he admitted, "until I learned what the locket really contained." Back in the courtroom, Vince's testimony had everyone riveted. "So you sent Ms. Reeves information about Dr. Novak?" Teresa clarified. "Yes," Vince confirmed. "I wanted her to understand what she had stumbled upon. And what exactly is the significance of Dr. Novak in relation to the locket?" Bennett stood again. "Objection, Your Honor. We're veering into hearsay and speculation." "Your Honor," Teresa countered, "Mr. Dawson has direct knowledge based on his own investigation." "I'll allow it," Judge Powell ruled. "But let's be precise, Mr. Dawson. What did you discover through your personal investigation about the connection between Dr. Novak and this locket?" Vince looked directly at Elon as he answered. "Dr. Novak created a revolutionary energy storage formula, one that could make fossil fuels obsolete overnight. Before she disappeared, she hid her research somewhere safe. Based on my investigation, I believe she concealed a microchip containing her formula inside the locket." Gasps spread through the courtroom. Elon's face remained impassive, but his right leg bounced rapidly under the table. "And how did Mr. Musk come to possess this locket?" Teresa asked. "He bought it through intermediaries from someone with connections to Dr. Novak's disappearance. I don't believe Mr. Musk knew what was inside the locket initially. But at some point, he discovered the hidden compartment and the microchip." "Objection!" Bennett shouted. "This is outrageous speculation." "Sustained," Judge Powell said firmly. "Mr. Dawson, please limit your testimony to facts you personally know." Vince nodded. "What I know for certain is that after discovering something inside the locket, Mr. Musk buried Dr. Novak's technology instead of sharing it with the world. That's why I reached out to Ms. Reeves. The truth needed to come out." As Vince continued, testifying, Amara touched the locket around her neck. The original locket was still missing, the one Elon had hidden away after their divorce. But thanks to Vince's help, she now had another lead to follow. And it would take her to a small antique shop owned by a woman named Magda Novak, the missing scientist's sister. As court adjourned for the day, reporters swarmed around the exits, desperate for comments. The story had exploded beyond a simple divorce dispute into something far more significant: allegations that the world's richest man had suppressed revolutionary technology. Amara slipped out a side door with Teresa, avoiding the media frenzy. In the safety of their car, Teresa turned to her client. "Tomorrow will be intense," she warned. "Bennett will try to destroy Vince's credibility during cross-examination. Are you ready for that?" Amara nodded, her thoughts already racing ahead to what would come after Vince's testimony, when she would need to explain how she found the locket she now wore around her neck. That journey had begun the day after her park meeting with Vince, when she'd received a text with an address and 3 words: Start your search. The address led to a small antique shop in a quiet neighborhood of brick buildings and narrow streets. A hand-painted sign above the door read, "Novak's Treasures." A bell jingled as Amara pushed open the door, stepping into a cramped space filled with old furniture, vintage clothing, and glass display cases of jewelry. Behind the counter stood an elderly woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun. Deep wrinkles lined her face, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Can I help you?" she asked, in a voice tinged with an Eastern European accent. "I hope so," Amara replied. "Are you Magda Novak?" The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "Who's asking?" "My name is Amara Reeves. I'm interested in learning about a specific item, a golden locket that might have belonged to your sister, Petra." The change in Magda's expression was immediate. Her face hardened, and she glanced toward the door as if checking that they were alone. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said stiffly. "I have many lockets for sale. Look around if you wish." She turned away, busying herself with arranging items in a display case. Amara wasn't deterred. "Ms. Novak, I believe your sister hid something important in her locket before she disappeared. Something that could help people around the world." Magda's hands froze. Without turning, she said quietly, "My sister is gone. 10 years now." The Ichi police found nothing. The journalists eventually stopped asking questions. "Why come now?" "Because I think I know what happened to her locket," Amara said. "And possibly what happened to her." Slowly, Magda turned around. "Wait here," she instructed, then disappeared through a curtained doorway at the back of the shop. When she returned, she was carrying a framed photograph. "This was Petra," she said, passing it to Amara. The photo showed 2 women, a younger Magda and a woman who must be Petra. They stood smiling outside a university building, arms linked. Around Petra's neck hung the golden locket, identical to the one Amara had found in Elon's safe. "She was brilliant," Magda said softly. "Always inventing, always working. Our parents were scientists too, in the old country. They died in a car accident when we were young, but Petra carried on their legacy." "The locket, it was special to her?" Amara prompted gently. Magda nodded. "It contained tiny photos of our parents. Petra wore it every day." Her eyes grew distant, but a few weeks before she disappeared, she told me she'd put something else in it, something important. She wouldn't say what, only that it was her greatest work. "Miniaturized," she said. "Did she seem afraid?" Amara asked. "Yes," Magda admitted. "She said powerful people would try to stop her research from becoming public. Energy should be nearly free for everyone," she told me. "But that would cost certain companies trillions." Amara's heart raced. This confirmed what Vince had told her. The locket contained Dr. Novak's revolutionary energy formula. "What happened to the locket after she disappeared?" Amara asked. "The police never found it. Her apartment was ransacked. I always assumed whoever took Petra took the locket too." Magda's eyes welled with tears. "Until 3 years ago, when it suddenly appeared in an online auction." "Did you try to buy it?" "Of course, but the price quickly went beyond what I could afford. It sold for nearly $1 million to an anonymous buyer." Magda wiped her eyes. "But then, 6 months ago, something strange happened. I received a package with no return address. Inside was the locket, or what appeared to be the locket." Back in the courtroom the next morning, Thomas Bennett began his cross-examination of Vince Dawson. "Mr. Dawson, you testified that you were fired for looking into the locket's history. Isn't it true that you were actually terminated for attempting to access confidential company files, unrelated to any jewelry?" Vince shook his head firmly. No, that was the official reason given. But the real issue was my investigation into the locket. And after being fired, you developed quite a grudge against Mr. Musk, didn't you? I developed concerns about his ethics, Vince corrected. There's a difference. Bennett approached the witness stand. You claim Mr. Musk discovered something inside the locket and then buried this technology. Do you have any proof of that? Beyond your speculation? I have emails, Vince replied. After Mr. Musk discovered what was in the locket, he diverted resources from his energy storage research division. Projects that competed with traditional fossil fuel companies were suddenly defunded. Objection, Bennett called out. Unless Mr. Dawson can produce these alleged emails, this is hearsay. Your Honor, Teresa interjected, we have copies of the emails in question, authenticated by digital forensics experts. They're included in our evidence package. Judge Powell nodded. Objection overruled. The witness may continue. Vince leaned forward. After discovering what was in the locket, Mr. Musk made deals with several major oil companies. His public statements about renewable energy became less ambitious. He began talking about a longer transition period away from fossil fuels. In his seat, Elon's expression remained neutral, but his eyes never left Vince's face. So, your theory, Bennett said with barely concealed sarcasm, is that my client, who has built his entire reputation on sustainable energy, suddenly decided to suppress a clean energy breakthrough? That makes no sense, Mr. Dawson. What makes no sense, Vince replied, is paying $1 million for a locket, lying about it to your wife, and then firing anyone who asks questions about it. The courtroom fell silent. Even Bennett seemed momentarily at a loss for words. No further questions, he finally said, returning to his seat. As Vince stepped down from the witness stand, Teresa stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Amara Reeves back to the stand to explain how she obtained the locket she's wearing today. As Amara made her way forward, she felt the weight of the golden locket against her chest. Inside, it was the evidence that would either vindicate her or destroy her case, and potentially change the world's energy future forever. That all depended on what Magda Novak had given her that day in the antique shop. Ms. Reeves, Teresa began, please tell the court what happened when you met Magda Novak. Amara adjusted the microphone. After speaking with Vince Dawson, I tracked down Dr. Petra Novak's sister, who owns an antique shop. She confirmed that her sister wore a golden locket like the one I found in Elon's safe. And what did Ms. Novak tell you about this locket? She explained that it originally contained photos of their parents, but shortly before Dr. Novak disappeared, she told her sister she had put something important inside it, something she described as her greatest work, miniaturized. The courtroom was silent as everyone listened intently. Even the usual shuffling and whispers had stopped. Ms. Novak also told me that the original locket had been sold at auction 3 years ago for nearly $1 million to an anonymous buyer. Amara glanced briefly at Elon. But 6 months ago, something unexpected happened. What was that? Teresa prompted. Magda received a package with no return address. Inside was what appeared to be her sister's locket. In the antique shop 6 months earlier, Magda had led Amara to a small back office cluttered with boxes and old ledgers. From a locked drawer, she had withdrawn a small velvet pouch. When I received this, Magda explained, I was certain it was Petra's locket. It looks identical. The same engraving. The same tiny scratch on the back. She hesitated. But when I opened it, I found only the original photos of our parents. Nothing else. She tipped the locket into Amara's palm. It was indeed identical. to the one Amara had found in Elon's safe. The same intricate engraving, the same weight and size. I had it examined by a jeweler friend. Magda continued. He said it was definitely old, probably from the 1920s, and made of 18-karat gold. But, she paused, he also said something odd. He believed it might be a replica, an extremely well-made one, but not the original. A replica? Amara asked, examining the locket closely. Who would go to the trouble of making such a perfect copy? That's what confused me, Magda admitted. Why send me a replica? Why not the real one? Unless the real one contains something valuable, Amara finished the thought. Magda nodded. Exactly. I believe someone has the original locket with whatever Petra hid inside it. This copy was sent to, I don't know. Confuse things? Ease someone's conscience? Amara turned the locket over in her hands, feeling its weight. May I? She asked, indicating that she wanted to open it. Magda nodded. Inside were two tiny faded photographs of an older couple, Petra and Magda's parents. Nothing else. No microchip, no hidden compartment. Just family photos, exactly as Magda had described. Ms. Novak, Amara said carefully, would you be willing to sell this locket to me? I believe it might help prove what happened to your sisters. Research. Magda studied Amara's face for a long moment. You were married to Elon Musk, the same man who anonymously bought my sister's locket at auction? Amara nodded. Yes, and I believe he discovered what your sister hid inside it. Instead of sharing that discovery with the world, he buried it. Tears formed in Magda's eyes. Petra wanted to give her work to humanity. Free energy, or nearly free, was her dream. She said it would help people in poor countries most of all. I want to honor your sister's wish, Amara said sincerely. I want the truth to come out. After a long silence, Magda nodded. Take it. No charge. Just promise me. You'll find out what really happened to Petra. Back in the courtroom, Amara concluded her testimony. So I purchased the locket from Magda Novak. I believe it's a replica of the original, the one that Elon bought at auction and later hid from me during our marriage. Teresa approached her client. Is this the locket you're wearing today? Yes, Amara confirmed, touching it gently. I've worn it every day since meeting with Magda, hoping it might help reveal the truth about Dr. Novak's missing research. Thomas Bennett stood for cross-examination. Ms. Reeves, you've spun quite a tale about missing scientists and secret formulas. But in reality, isn't this just an expensive piece of jewelry that you've built conspiracy theories around? Amara shook her head firmly. No. The evidence shows that Dr. Novak hid something important in her locket before she disappeared. That same locket was later purchased by Elon for an extraordinary sum. When I found it, he lied about its origins and became defensive. Later, he removed it from our home when we divorced. Yet you have no actual proof that this locket contains any revolutionary technology, do you? The proof is in Elon's behavior, Amara replied. Why else would he pay $1 million for it? Why lie about it? Why hide it from me? Bennett smiled thinly. Perhaps because you seem obsessed with it? Perhaps because you've now dragged my client into a public lawsuit over a family heirloom? It's not a family heirloom, Amara said firmly. It belonged to Dr. Petra Novak, a brilliant scientist who disappeared after creating a revolutionary energy storage formula that threatened the fossil fuel industry. Bennett shook his head. No further questions, Your Honor. The defense will present its case tomorrow. As court adjourned for the day, Reporters rushed to file their stories. The case had become headline news worldwide. Missing scientist's locket at center of Musk lawsuit, and did tech billionaire bury clean energy breakthrough? Outside the courtroom, Teresa updated Amara on tomorrow's plan. We'll call our technical expert to explain how a microchip could be hidden in the locket. Then we'll present the emails Vince provided, showing the changes in Elon's companies after he acquired the locket. Amara nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. Throughout the day, she had noticed something strange. Elon seemed almost calm now, no longer startled by the locket's presence. It was as if he knew something she didn't. As she got into her car, a troubling thought surfaced. What if they were all wrong about what was inside the locket? That night, Amara couldn't sleep. The question kept circling in her mind. What if they were wrong about the locket? What if there was no microchip, no revolutionary formula? What if this entire lawsuit was based on a misunderstanding? She paced her hotel room, the locket hanging heavy around her neck. Everything had seemed so clear when she filed the lawsuit, 3 months ago. After gathering evidence from Vince and Magda, Amara had consulted with energy experts who confirmed that Dr. Novak had been on the verge of a breakthrough before her disappearance. Her published research had pointed toward a storage system that could capture and release energy with nearly 100% efficiency, something previously thought impossible. If such technology existed, it would transform the world. Solar and wind. Power could be stored without loss, making renewable energy viable everywhere. Electricity could reach remote villages without expensive power lines. The cost of energy worldwide would plummet, and the profits of fossil fuel companies would vanish almost overnight. Amara had taken her evidence to Teresa Chen, one of the country's top technology lawyers. After reviewing everything, Teresa had agreed to take the case. This isn't just about your divorce or the locket itself, Teresa had explained. If what you're suggesting is true, this is about the public interest. It's about technology that could help billions of people being suppressed for profit. Filing the lawsuit had created an immediate media storm. Ex-wife claims Musk hid world-changing technology blazed across headlines. Elon's PR team had immediately gone into damage control, dismissing the claims as the desperate fabrications of a woman scorned. For the first week, Amara had faced intense public scrutiny. Reporters camped outside her home. Online trolls attacked her character. Elon's supporters called her greedy, crazy, attention-seeking. But then Vince Dawson had come forward publicly, confirming parts of her story. Former employees from Elon's companies began speaking anonymously about research projects, suddenly canceled without explanation. Environmental groups rallied to her cause, filing friend-of-the-court briefs supporting the lawsuit. The tide of public opinion had begun to shift. People started asking questions. Why would a man who claimed to champion sustainable energy bury a breakthrough? What exactly had happened to Dr. Petra Novak? Why had Elon paid so much for an old locket? Now, 3 months later, the trial was finally underway. Tomorrow, Elon would take the stand in his own defense. What would he say? How would he explain the locket? As morning broke, Amara finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, the golden locket clutched in her hand. "All rise," the bailiff called, as Judge Powell entered the courtroom for day 3 of the trial. The gallery was even more packed than before, with people lined up outside hoping for a seat. The case had captured worldwide attention, with live updates streaming online. "The defense may call its first witness," Judge Powell announced after everyone was settled. Thomas Bennett stood. "The defense calls Dr. Marcus Reynolds to the stand, a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses approached the witness stand. After being sworn in, he introduced himself as the head of metallurgical research at Cambridge University. "Dr. Reynolds," Bennett began, "have you examined the locket presented as evidence in this case?" "I have," Dr. Reynolds confirmed. "I was provided with detailed photographs and specifications." "And what conclusions did you reach?" "Based on the evidence I reviewed, this appears to be a standard locket from the early 20th century. There is no indication of any hidden compartment or unusual modification that could contain a microchip." Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Amara leaned forward, frowning. "So, in your expert opinion," Bennett continued, "could this locket contain the sort of microchip or storage device the plaintiff has described?" "It seems highly unlikely," Dr. Reynolds replied. "The locket appears to be solid gold with a simple hinge mechanism. There's simply no space for such a device without visible modification." Bennett nodded. "Thank you, Doctor. No further questions." Teresa Chen rose for cross-examination. "Dr. Reynolds, have you physically examined the actual locket? Or only photographs?" "Only photographs and specifications," he admitted. "Are you aware that microchips can now be made smaller than a grain of rice?" "Yes, but..." "And are you familiar with Dr. Novak's specific work in miniaturization?" "I am familiar with her published work, yes. But not her unpublished research? The breakthroughs she claimed to have made before her disappearance?" Dr. Reynolds hesitated. "No, I am not. So you cannot state with certainty that it would be impossible for her to have created a microchip small enough to hide in this locket?" "I suppose not with absolute certainty, no," Teresa nodded. No further questions. Next, Bennett called a series of character witnesses, former employees who testified to Elon's dedication to sustainable energy, philanthropists who had worked with him on environmental causes, even a climate scientist who praised his contributions to reducing carbon emissions. Throughout the testimony, Elon sat calmly at the defense table, occasionally making notes. His earlier shock at seeing the locket seemed completely gone, replaced by an almost confident demeanor. Finally, Bennett announced, "The defense calls Elon Musk." A hush fell over the courtroom as Elon approached the witness stand. Cameras flashed despite the judge's earlier warnings. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. After being sworn in, Elon sat comfortably, his posture relaxed. Gone was the nervous, shocked man from the first day of trial. "Mr. Musk," Bennett began, "did you purchase a golden locket at auction 3 years ago?" "Yes, I did," Elon replied simply. "And why did you buy this item?" "I was interested in Dr. Novak's work. When I learned that her personal locket was up for auction, I wanted to acquire it as a piece of scientific history." "When Ms. Reeves found the locket in your safe, how did you react?" Elon sighed. "I overreacted. I admit that. The locket was part of a surprise I was planning for our anniversary. A new research initiative based on Dr. Novak's work. Finding Amara going through the safe caught me off guard." Amara stiffened in her seat. This was a complete fabrication. There had been no planned surprise, no research initiative announcement. "Mr. Musk, the plaintiff claims you discovered something inside this locket. A revolutionary energy formula that you then suppressed. How do you respond?" Elon smiled slightly. "That's simply not true. There was nothing hidden in the locket when I acquired it. Then why did you pay such a large sum for it?" Dr. Novak was a brilliant scientist whose work I've always admired. The locket was a personal connection to her legacy. He paused. "And yes, I hoped it might contain a clue to her final research. But it didn't." As Bennett continued questioning Elon, Amara felt a growing sense of dread. His answers seemed practiced, reasonable, and completely false. Without hard evidence of what was inside the original locket, how could she prove he was lying? Then Bennett asked the question everyone was waiting for. "Mr. Musk, what happened to the original locket after your divorce?" Elon's answer would change. "Everything." "Mr. Musk, what happened to the original locket after your divorce?" Bennett repeated when Elon hesitated. Elon straightened in his seat. "I donated it to the Science and Technology Museum in Switzerland, where Dr. Novak did much of her early research. It's been on display there for the past 2 years as part of their Women in Science exhibit." Gasps and whispers erupted throughout the courtroom. Judge Powell tapped her gavel for order. Amara felt as if the floor had dropped away beneath her. How was this possible? She had been so certain Elon had hidden the locket to protect his business interests. If it had been on public display, all. This time, Bennett smiled, clearly pleased with the reaction. "And did you inform Ms. Reeves of this donation?" "I tried," Elon replied. "I sent her an email shortly after the donation was made, but received no response. I assumed she was still upset about our divorce and didn't want any communication from me." Amara shook her head vigorously and whispered something to Teresa, who quickly made a note. "Mr. Musk, can you explain why you removed the locket from your home safe during the divorce proceedings?" "Certainly." The divorce was becoming contentious, and Amara seemed fixated on the locket. "I was concerned it might be damaged or lost during the moving process, so I removed it for safekeeping until I decided what to do with it." "And why donate it to a museum?" Elon spread his hands in a gesture of openness. "Dr. Novak's work deserves to be remembered and celebrated. Keeping the locket in my private collection seemed selfish. I thought it belonged somewhere the public and future scientists could see it and be inspired." Bennett nodded. "Let's address the core of the plaintiff's claim. She suggests you discovered a revolutionary energy formula inside the locket and then deliberately suppressed this technology. How do you respond?" "It's completely false," Elon stated firmly. "My entire career has been dedicated to advancing sustainable energy. I've invested billions in solar power, electric vehicles, and battery research. The idea that I would bury technology that could further those goals is absurd." "Then why do you think Ms. Reeves has made these claims?" Elon sighed. "I can't speak to her motivations. Our divorce was difficult for both of us. Perhaps she genuinely misunderstood something she heard or saw during our marriage." Judge Powell glanced at the time. "We'll take a 15-minute recess before cross-examination." As everyone filed out, Amara turned to Teresa with urgent whispers. The lawsuit that had seemed so solid now teetered on the brink of collapse. If Elon's testimony was true, if the locket had been in a museum all this time, what did that mean for their case? Teresa's assistant hurriedly made phone calls while consulting her tablet. When court resumed, Teresa approached the podium with renewed confidence. "Mr. Musk," she began, "you testified that the original locket has been on display at the Science and Technology Museum in Switzerland for 2 years. Is that correct?" "Yes," Elon confirmed. Teresa slid a document across to him. "This is an email from the museum's curator confirming that while you did indeed donate a golden locket 2 years ago, it was not placed on display until 3 months ago. Coincidentally, right after Ms. Reeves filed this lawsuit. How do you explain that?" Elon frowned slightly. "Museums often take time to incorporate new items into their exhibits. I wasn't involved in their scheduling decisions." "Isn't it true that you contacted the museum only after learning of this lawsuit and arranged for the locket to be displayed immediately?" "Objection assumes facts not in evidence," Bennett called out. "I'll rephrase," Teresa said. Did you contact the museum after Ms. Reeves filed this lawsuit? Yes, Elon admitted. I wanted to ensure the locket was properly displayed, since it had suddenly become a matter of public interest. Teresa nodded. Now, regarding this donation, why wouldn't you mention something so significant during discovery for this case? When asked to account for the locket's whereabouts, your legal team claimed you no longer possessed it, but provided no details about its location. Elon shifted in his seat. That was on advice of counsel. We were concerned that disclosing the location might lead to attempts to remove or examine the locket improperly. I see, Teresa said. Let's talk about Dr. Novak's research. You claim to admire her work, yet your companies have never cited her papers or built upon her specific innovations. Why is that? We've incorporated aspects of many researchers' work, including Dr. Novak's. Not every influence is directly cited. Teresa approached the witness stand. Mr. Musk, I'd like to show you some emails that Mr. Dawson provided to the court. She displayed the first email on the courtroom screens. It was from Elon to his head of research, dated shortly after he acquired the locket. Change of direction on Project Sunburst. Suspend all work on the new storage technology. Shift resources to improving existing battery designs instead. Can you explain why you suddenly canceled a promising research project right after acquiring Dr. Novak's locket? Teresa asked. Project Sunburst wasn't yielding results that justified its cost, Elon replied. It was a simple business decision. Teresa displayed another email, this one from a month later. It was between Elon and the CEO of a major oil company. Strategic. Partnership makes sense for both sides. Your distribution network combined with our moderate efficiency improvements. Revolutionary change isn't always the answer. Mr. Musk, prior to acquiring the locket, you frequently spoke about revolutionary energy solutions. Afterward, you began emphasizing incremental improvements and strategic partnerships with fossil fuel companies. How do you explain this? Shift in philosophy? My thinking evolved based on market realities, Elon said, his voice growing tighter. Sometimes revolution isn't practical. Evolution can be more effective. The questioning continued for another hour, with Teresa methodically presenting evidence of changes in Elon's business strategies, research priorities, and public statements, all occurring after he acquired the locket. Throughout the aggressive cross-examination, Elon maintained his composure, though his answers became increasingly terse. He denied any connection between the locket and his business decisions, insisted the locket contained no hidden technology, and repeated that it had been donated for purely philanthropic reasons. Finally, Teresa asked the question everyone was waiting for. Mr. Musk, would you be willing to have the locket at the museum examined by independent experts to determine if it contains any hidden compartment or microchip? A flicker of something. Concern? Fear? Crossed Elon's face before he regained his neutral expression. That would be up to the museum. It's their property now. But you could grant permission as the donor, couldn't you? I suppose so, yes. And will you do that? Will you allow independent experts to examine the locket? The courtroom held its collective breath. Even Judge Powell leaned forward slightly. After a long pause, Elon answered, Yes, I have nothing to hide. Teresa nodded. No further questions, Your Honor. As Elon stepped down from the witness stand, Amara noticed something odd. Despite his confident testimony, a slight tremor had developed in his right hand. He was worried about something. When court adjourned for the day, reporters swarmed outside. The headlines that evening ranged from Musk agrees to independent examination of mysterious locket to tech billionaire's ex-wife's claims crumbling in court. In her hotel room that night, Amara received an urgent call from Teresa. "We have a problem," her lawyer said without preamble. "I just got word from our contact at the Swiss Museum. They went to secure the locket for examination tomorrow, but there's been a development." "What kind of development?" Amara asked, her heart pounding. "The locket is gone. Disappeared from its display case sometime in the last hour." Amara sank onto the edge of the bed, her mind racing. "Elon," she whispered. "He must have had someone take it." "We don't know that," Teresa cautioned, "but it doesn't look good." "What happens now?" "We go back to court tomorrow and inform the judge, without the original locket to examine." Teresa didn't need to finish the sentence. Their case was in serious jeopardy. As she hung up, Amara touched the replica locket around her neck. This time, she'd been certain she knew what was happening, that Elon had discovered world-changing technology in the locket and buried it for profit. But what if there was another explanation entirely? What if the real story was even more complicated than she had imagined? Tomorrow would bring the final day of testimony, and perhaps, at last, the truth about what was really inside the golden locket. The courthouse was surrounded by news vans and reporters when Amara arrived the next morning. Word of the missing museum locket had leaked overnight, creating a fresh media frenzy. Conspiracy theories exploded online. Some claiming Elon had orchestrated the theft, others suggesting Amara's supporters were behind it to frame him. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with excitement. Judge Powell called for order as soon as she took the bench. "I understand there's been a development regarding the locket at the Swiss Museum," she said. "Ms. Chen, can you update the court?" Teresa stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We've received confirmation from museum officials that the golden locket donated by Mr. Musk has disappeared from its display case. Security footage shows a visitor lingering near the case shortly before closing time, but their face isn't visible on camera." Murmurs swept through the gallery. Judge Powell tapped her gavel. "Mr. Bennett, does the defense have any response to this development?" Elon's lawyer rose quickly. "Your Honor, my client is as shocked as everyone else by this news. He has already offered a $1 million reward for information leading to the recovery of the locket." "How convenient," Teresa remarked. "Counselor," Judge Powell warned. "Apologies, Your Honor," Teresa said. "Given this development, we request permission to call Ms. Reeves back to the stand. She has new information relevant to the case." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Amara took the oath again and sat down, her back straight, the replica locket visible around her neck. "Ms. Reeves," Teresa began, "in light of recent events, is there anything you'd like to share with the court about the locket you're wearing?" "Yes," Amara replied, her voice steady. "Last night, after hearing about the museum theft, I had a jeweler friend examine this locket more carefully. He discovered something I had missed." She reached up and pressed the edges of the locket in a specific pattern, top, bottom, right side twice. With a soft click, a hidden compartment opened in the back. Gasps filled the courtroom. Even Judge Powell leaned forward to see better. It appears that both lockets, the original and this replica, contained a secret compartment that isn't visible unless you know exactly how to open it, Amara explained. "And what did you find inside?" Teresa asked. "The compartment in this replica is empty," Amara said. "But its existence proves that Dr. Novak could have hidden something in the original locket, exactly as her sister suggested." Across the courtroom, Elon had gone completely still, his eyes fixed on the locket in Amara's hands. "Ms. Reeves, what do you believe was in the original locket's hidden compartment?" Teresa asked. "Based on all the evidence we've gathered, Dr. Novak's research focus, her sister's testimony, Mr. Dawson's information, and Elon's actions after acquiring it, I believe it contained a microchip with Dr. Novak's revolutionary energy storage formula. Teresa nodded. Thank you. No further questions. Thomas Bennett approached for cross-examination, his expression skeptical. Ms. Reeves, this last-minute discovery seems awfully convenient, doesn't it? After the museum locket disappears, you suddenly find a hidden compartment in your replica. I wasn't looking for it before, Amara replied calmly. The jeweler found it by accident when examining the craftsmanship. And this empty compartment proves what, exactly? That Dr. Novak could have hidden something. That's speculation, not evidence. It proves that the locket was designed to conceal something, Amara insisted. Combined with everything else we know, it supports our claim. Bennett shook his head. No further questions, Your Honor. Judge Powell checked the time. We'll take a brief recess before closing arguments. As people filed out, a commotion erupted. Near the courtroom doors, a woman was trying to enter, speaking urgently to the bailiff. After a brief conversation, the bailiff approached Judge Powell. They spoke quietly for a moment before the judge nodded. Counsel, approach the bench, Judge Powell called. After a brief conference, court resumed with an unexpected announcement. The court will hear from a final witness, Judge Powell said. The defense calls Dr. Petra Novak to the stand. The courtroom erupted in shock as an older woman with silver-streaked dark hair walked slowly to the witness stand. She appeared to be in her 60s, with deep lines around her eyes but a sharp, alert gaze. Amara stared in disbelief. Dr. Novak alive? It couldn't be possible. She had disappeared 10 years ago. Everyone believed she was dead. After the oath was administered, Elon's lawyer approached the witness. Could you please state your name for the record? Dr. Petra Novak, the woman said in a clear voice with a slight Eastern European accent. Dr. Novak, where have you been for the past 10 years? She glanced briefly at Elon before answering. In hiding. Working in private laboratories under an assumed name. And why were you in hiding? Because my research was dangerous, not the technology itself, but what certain people might do to control it. Dr. Novak folded her hands calmly. I developed an energy storage method that would make electricity nearly free for everyone. But powerful interests didn't want that to happen. What happened 10 years ago when you supposedly disappeared? I received threats, serious ones. My lab was broken into twice. I feared for my life. Her expression hardened. So I made a decision to disappear. I took my most important research, miniaturized onto a chip that I hid in my family locket, and I vanished. Bennett nodded encouragingly. And how did Mr. Musk become involved? 3 years ago, I learned that my locket had been put up for auction by someone who had connections to the people who threatened me. I couldn't retrieve it myself without revealing I was alive, so I reached out to someone I thought might help, someone who had the resources to acquire it and who shared my vision of sustainable energy. Elon Musk, Bennett supplied. Yes, I contacted him anonymously and explained what was hidden in the locket. He agreed to buy it at auction to keep it safe. Amara felt the blood drain from her face. This wasn't at all what she had expected. Dr. Novak, what was on the microchip? Hidden in your locket? My complete research on a new type of energy storage system, one that could store electricity with nearly 100% efficiency and minimal cost. And did Mr. Musk suppress this technology as the plaintiff claims? Dr. Novak shook her head firmly. Absolutely not. He has been helping me perfect it, making it safer and more stable before releasing it to the world. Why the secrecy? Bennett asked. The technology wasn't ready, Dr. Novak explained. In its early form, it was unstable, potentially dangerous, and there were still people who wanted to control it or prevent its release. Working in secret was the only way to ensure it would eventually benefit everyone, not just the wealthy or powerful. Bennett turned to look at Amara. So, the plaintiff's central claim, that Mr. Musk buried your technology to protect his business interests, is false? Completely false, Dr. Novak confirmed. He's been funding my research for years, at great personal expense, to make this technology available to the world. The courtroom was utterly silent now. Amara felt as if the floor had dropped away beneath her. Everything she thought she knew, everything she'd built this lawsuit around, was crumbling. One final question, Dr. Novak, Bennett said. What happened to the original locket that was on display at the museum in Switzerland? Dr. Novak reached into her pocket and pulled out a golden locket identical to the one Amara wore. I took it, she said simply. It's mine, after all, and the time has come to reveal what's inside. As Bennett returned to his seat, Teresa rose slowly for cross-examination, her expression stunned. Dr. Novak, if what you say is true, why didn't Mr. Musk simply explain this to Ms. Reeves during their marriage? Why all the secrecy and deception? Dr. Novak glanced at Elon before answering. That was my condition for his help. Complete secrecy. Every person who knew I was alive increased the risk. I didn't know Ms. Reeves. I couldn't risk my safety and the technology on someone I hadn't vetted personally. So you're saying Elon kept this secret from his wife on your instructions? Yes, Dr. Novak said firmly. I insisted on it. As Teresa continued questioning the unexpected witness, Amara's mind raced. Could this really be true? Had she completely misinterpreted everything? Had Elon actually been protecting Dr. Novak and her world-changing technology all this time? If so, her lawsuit wasn't just wrong, it had potentially put everything in jeopardy. As the cross-examination concluded, Judge Powell announced, in light of this extraordinary testimony, I'm ordering a recess until tomorrow morning, when we'll hear closing arguments. As everyone rose, Amara's eyes met Elon's across the courtroom. His expression wasn't triumphant or angry as she might have expected. Instead, he looked almost sad. Tomorrow would bring the final chapter in this strange saga. But already, Amara was beginning to suspect that the truth about the golden locket was far more complicated than she had ever imagined. On the morning of the final day, Amara woke early after a restless night. The appearance of Dr. Novak had turned everything upside down. If the scientist's testimony was true, then Elon hadn't been suppressing world-changing technology. He had been protecting it and its creator. As Amara dressed for court, she kept returning to one question. Why hadn't Elon trusted her enough to tell her the truth? The courthouse was even more crowded than before. News of Dr. Novak's appearance had spread worldwide, with headlines proclaiming "Missing Scientist Returns from the Dead" and "Musk Vindicated in Locket Lawsuit." When Judge Powell called the court to order, she looked out at the packed gallery with a stern expression. Before we proceed with closing arguments, I have a decision to make. She turned to Dr. Novak, who was seated behind the defense table. Given the extraordinary nature of yesterday's testimony, I believe we need to establish some facts definitively. Dr. Novak, are you willing to open the original locket here in court so we can see what's inside? Dr. Novak nodded. Yes, Your Honor. That's why I came forward. The time for secrecy is over. Ms. Reeves, the judge continued, I'll ask you to do the same with your replica locket. Amara touched the locket at her throat. Of course, Your Honor. Bailiff, Please escort both women to the witness stand. Standing side by side, Amara and Dr. Novak created a striking image. The younger woman with dark hair and the older scientist with her silver-streaked locks, each holding an identical golden locket. Dr. Novak, please proceed first, Judge, Powell instructed. With practiced movements, Petra Novak pressed the edges of her locket in the same pattern Amara had discovered. Top, bottom, right side twice. The hidden compartment clicked open. From inside, she carefully extracted a tiny object no larger than a grain of rice. This, Dr. Novak explained, holding it up for the court to see, is a microchip containing my complete research on what I call quantum storage technology. It can store electrical energy with 99.8% efficiency and release it on demand, using materials that are abundant and inexpensive. Murmurs spread through the courtroom as Dr. Novak continued. With this technology, solar and wind power become viable everywhere, regardless of weather conditions. Energy can be stored without loss. Electricity can reach remote areas without expensive infrastructure. She looked directly at Amara. It's exactly what Ms. Reeves believed it was, technology that could change the world. Judge Powell nodded. Thank you, Dr. Novak. Ms. Reeves, please open your locket now. With slightly trembling fingers, Amara opened the hidden compartment in her replica locket. As expected, it was empty. Thank you both, the judge said. You may return to your seats. Before closing arguments began, Elon raised his hand. Your Honor, if I may? At the judge's nod, he stood. I'd like to address the court directly. This is unusual, but given the circumstances, I'll allow it, Judge Powell agreed. Elon moved to the center of the courtroom, his gaze finding Amara. 3 years ago, I discovered something extraordinary in a golden locket. Not just Dr. Novak's technology, but her trust. She reached out to me because she believed I would do the right thing. He paused. I've made many mistakes in my life, but I've always tried to push humanity forward. This technology offered a chance to do that on an unprecedented scale. He looked down briefly before continuing. But it wasn't ready. Early tests showed instability issues, potentially dangerous ones. Dr. Novak and I agreed to develop it further, in secret, until it was safe and could be implemented worldwide without being controlled or suppressed by powerful interests. Elon turned to face Amara directly. I should have trusted you with the truth, Amara. You were my wife, my partner. But I had made a promise to Petra to tell no one. Not family, not friends, no one. So I kept the secret, even from you. That choice cost me my marriage, and for that, I am truly sorry. The courtroom was utterly silent as he continued. But the work continued. And now, after years of research and refinement, the technology is finally ready. He smiled slightly. Tomorrow, Dr. Novak and I will be announcing the Quantum Storage Initiative, making this technology freely available worldwide through open-source licenses. No one will own it. Everyone will benefit from it. Gasps and exclamations filled the courtroom. Judge Powell tapped her gavel for order. Elon returned to his seat as the judge turned to Amara. Ms. Reeves, in light of these revelations, do you wish to continue with your lawsuit? Amara stood slowly. No, Your Honor. I filed this case believing that valuable technology was being suppressed. It appears I was wrong about Mr. Musk's intentions, if not about the technology itself. She took a deep breath. I hereby withdraw my complaint. Judge Powell nodded. Very well. This case is dismissed. As the courtroom erupted in excited conversation, Amara gathered her things. The truth had finally emerged, but not at all as she had expected. She had been right about what was in the locket, but wrong about everything else. Outside on the courthouse steps, reporters shouted questions as Amara tried to make her way to her car. Suddenly, a familiar voice called her name. She turned to see Elon approaching, with Dr. Novak beside him. "Amara," Elon said, "there's someone else you should meet." From behind them stepped an older woman Amara recognized immediately from her photograph. Magda Novak, Petra's sister. "You've been keeping my sister's secret too," Magda said with a smile. "Without knowing it." "I don't understand," Amara said, looking between the three of them. "The replica locket," Dr. Novak explained. "I sent it to my sister after I saw how determined you were to uncover the truth. I knew eventually you would discover the hidden compartment." "It was a test," Magda added, "to see what you would do with the knowledge." "And you passed," Elon said quietly. "You could have claimed the technology was yours, or sold the information to my competitors. Instead, you fought for the truth to be revealed to everyone." Dr. Novak smiled. "Which is why we want you to join us tomorrow for the announcement. Your clean energy company, Novus Power, would be an ideal partner for implementing the first commercial applications of the technology." Amara stood speechless, trying to process everything. Elon held out his hand. "What do you say, Amara? Partners again? For the sake of the planet, if not for us?" As camera flashes popped around them, Amara looked at the hand extended toward her. So much had happened, so many misunderstandings and secrets. But the goal she had always believed in, clean, accessible energy for everyone, was finally within reach. Slowly, she reached out and took Elon's hand. "Partners," she agreed. As they shook hands, Dr. Novak opened her golden locket once more, showing the tiny microchip that would change the world's energy future forever. The truth had finally emerged from inside the golden locket, bringing with it the promise of a brighter tomorrow for everyone. Thanks for joining our story journey. Where are you listening from today? Drop your location in the comments below. We love knowing our stories reach listeners worldwide. If you enjoyed the Golden Locket, please tap that like button and subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us spread more stories and kindness to people everywhere. And don't miss our next exciting tale. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now to continue your adventure with us. Until next time, happy listening.